You're watching BBC News and special coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm Matthew Amreliwala in London.
And I'm Lise Doucette in Kiev. Russia launches a major military assault on Ukraine by land, air and sea. There have been explosions near major cities, including the capital, Kiev. As the Russian army moved in from three directions, there was international condemnation of the Russian leader, Vladimir Putin.
Peace on our continent has been shattered. We now have war in Europe on a scale and of a type we thought belonged to history.
Long queues in Kiev as residents try to flee the capital. Their president calls on the international community for help. Western leaders pledge aid to Ukraine and promise further sanctions on Russia.
I don't believe that the Russian dictator will ever subdue the national feeling of the Ukrainians and their passionate belief that their country should be free.
We'll be live with our correspondents in Moscow and also live in Washington.
And I'll be speaking to a former Prime Minister of Ukraine, as well as to senior diplomats and to many caught up in this growing crisis as we assess the momentous events of the past few hours. Welcome to this special coverage on BBC News. We're live in Kiev, where today, just before dawn, just before 5 a.m., as air raid sirens sounded, the Russian leader Vladimir Putin launched, as many predicted and feared, an all-out assault on Ukraine. The government here has called it a full-scale invasion, saying there have been multiple explosions from cruise and ballistic missiles in several cities. Russian tanks and troops have been pouring across the borders from three directions. Earlier today, the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said it was a brutal act of war of the type we had thought was part of history in Europe.
Well, in an address to the nation, Russia's President Vladimir Putin said anyone who tried to interfere with Russia's operation would face consequences that have never been experienced in history. The British Prime Minister has said this hideous and barbaric venture must end in failure. The French President said we will respond to this act of war without weakness.
And for people here who've been trying to stay calm for weeks, today there was, not surprisingly, a dramatic change in mood. And there was an exodus in the hours since the military action started. Let's look at all the latest developments with this report from our correspondent Paul Adams here in Kiev.